Weather buff. Your backyard. Everywhere. Weather buff.
Hello, Buffalo and Western New York. You are listening to a special edition of Weather Buff, the show dedicated to all things weather. Today we are talking about Groundhog Day 2021. I am your host, Jack Kanack, also known as the Weather Medic, the Doctor of Weather, along with my co-host, JJ Ptak.
Hello.
And also joining JJ and myself is my very special guest from the Geography and Planning Department of Buffalo State College, Dr. Stephen Vermette.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today?
Good, very good.
Fantastic.
Well, your emails are also welcome. If you have a weather question or a question regarding the show, you can reach me by my email at wxmedic@gmail.com. That is WX, the abbreviation for weather, and the word medic at gmail.com. Also, if you're new to this channel and like the content, please subscribe and hit the like button. On this special Groundhog's Day edition, we'll give you the history of Groundhog Day and talk about the most famous groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, and what it's like to be at Gobbler's Knob. We will then talk about the prognostications of other groundhogs in the United States and Canada. Well, certain groundhog in Pennsylvania, Punxsutawney Phil, was awakened from his burrow this past Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021 at 7:35 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and promptly predicted 6 more weeks of winter.
Now, you know, he doesn't wake up. They pull him out.
They pull him out.
They pull him out.
Is he the one that bit somebody one year?
That was a New York City one, and there was one in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin that bit the mayor as well. We'll get to that later.
In Punxsutawney, when I was there one time, he urinated all over the handle.
They deserved it.
Yeah. So
He wasn't saying what he said while he was doing that.
Punxsutawney wasn't happy getting up at 7:35 in the morning, so he's pulled out.
In the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what you gotta go, you know, especially if you're sleeping and someone pulls you out. Oh man. Well, this is what he reportedly said. He said, quote, "After winter, you're looking forward to one of the most beautiful and brightest springs you've ever seen," end quote.
But we're not going to tell you what he really said.
True, JJ. The National Weather Service said that Phil is only 39% accurate, and early spring is defined as a spring in which a majority of the days between Groundhog Day and the March equinox have a high temperature of over 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
I have a problem with that.
And
40 degrees Fahrenheit where? Punxsutawney Phil is the bellwether groundhog. He's the one that the country watches. And 40 degrees Fahrenheit is pretty tough to get up in Minnesota. I don't know if they'll ever have an early spring. Maybe in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, but that's a tough one for the country, 40 degrees Fahrenheit or above.
well, and especially when you look at the South, like Louisiana, they have a groundhog in North Carolina. The temperatures are much warmer down there.
Well, you know, the way I always looked at it was that if you're after Groundhog's Day, if the remaining time of winter is warmer than average, then I'll call that a early spring. If it's colder than average, I'd call it 6 more weeks of winter. So in ways, it's kind of dependent on where you are. So you can take Punxsutawney Phil's forecast and you can apply it to your local area. But 40 degrees Fahrenheit for across the country, that's pretty tough. Not tough in the South, but for an early spring, tough up north.
Yes. and real tough if you're in Alaska.
Yeah, that's right. Although with climate change, Alaska seems to be doing better than some parts of the contiguous states.
True, very true. Well, every February 2nd since 1887, a groundhog in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, has made his weather prediction based on the appearance of the sun. Either it's sunny and he sees a shadow, which in folklore means 6 more weeks of winter, or it's cloudy and the groundhog doesn't see his shadow, meaning an early spring. Phil is North America's most famous weather predictor. Though you might have not realized it, Groundhog Day is actually an astronomical holiday. It's a cross-quarter day falling approximately midway between the December solstice and the March equinox. Now, the Groundhog Day tradition can be traced to Candlemas, an early Christian holiday where candles were blessed and distributed. Those who celebrated Candlemas decided that clear skies on the holiday meant a longer winter.
So they must have been observing that. But one thing I want to mention about Candlemas is that they not only distributed the candles, but they lit those candles. And those candles were a symbol of a brightening world when they're in this very dark world right now. So it casts some light into the world. And Candlemas was always kind of linked to Easter, because you start with a candle and you work your way through the Christian calendar to the brightness of Easter. So there's that kind of tradition, light the candle at Candlemas, February 2nd, and then there's the brightness, the celebration at Easter. So the roots are kind of a Christian tradition there.
Cool.
The Germans began to believe that if the sun made an appearance on Candlemas Day, a hedgehog would cast a shadow, predicting 6 more weeks of harsh winter weather. And it was the Germans who brought this belief to the United States.
Thank you.
I just thought they brought Oktoberfest.
Food and the groundhog.
Got more beer in October.
Well, when German immigrants arrived in Pennsylvania, they found a large number of groundhogs, and they tasked the groundhog, which resembles a European hedgehog, with the job of predicting the weather.
You know, when you're thinking about groundhogs, and I was thinking about Punxsutawney Phil, there are 3 classes or categories for groundhogs. Well, we're not going to talk about plastic or virtual or puppet groundhogs. And I know there was an example of a chicken at one time, and I don't know if that counts, and a snake in Arizona, but I don't know how a snake can see its shadow, not very easy. But if we just talk about groundhogs, there are 3 categories. One is living forever. Punxsutawney Phil, the one that that started the tradition, is the same groundhog, we are told. The inner circle handlers feed that groundhog, Punxsutawney, the elixir of life. And because of that, that groundhog has been here from the very beginning, the same groundhog, if you believe that or not. And then there's another type of groundhog, which is the tidal. Near us, we have Dunkirk Dave. We'll talk about Dunkirk Dave.
Mm-hmm.
There have been many Dunkirk days. Groundhogs will pass away, but a new one gets the title of Dunkirk Dave, and therefore is able to continue the tradition. And then the third category is, well, the ones that pass away and the tradition ends. They're based on that one individual. And one I had read about was Chattanooga Chuck. In 2019 passed away, and I don't think there's another Chattanooga Chuck. It's just the one and only Chattanooga Chuck. So we kind of, based on all these groundhogs we're going to be talking about, there's kind of those 3 categories. Then of course there's the stuffed ones.
Yes, the stuffed ones.
The plastic ones and other things like that.
Now you have a map we're going to show later, but the map is only the real groundhogs.
We try. Jackie Point, one I had was up in Manitoba Merv. I thought he was real, and it turns out he's not. He's the only one that was wearing a COVID mask, though. Because probably only a puppet would wear the mask. I don't think the other ones would want to wear that mask.
All right, well, so now we're to the point where we're going to go, and Dr. Vermette is going to share his experiences, what it's like to be at Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, because it's been on his bucket list and on many other people's bucket lists. And he's made the pilgrimage several times. So we're going to go and give it now to Dr. Vermette, and we're going to show some slides in the process of, you know, what's gone on in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you know, I've been to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania many times. We have a meteorology and climatology program here, and to have a little fun, every year we would get some volunteers, load up the van, and head down to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania from Buffalo, New York. It's about a 4-hour drive, and we would arrive probably around 5 or 6 in the late afternoon or early evening. And the first place we went to was the local theater. They graciously allow you to sleep there, so you don't have to rent a hotel room or anything. So we just brought our sleeping bags, set ourselves up at the bottom of the stage, and laid everything out. And then we explored the town. And there's a weather museum. There was a comedy club we went to. There was times there are chili cook-offs. There's usually some kind of market in the square where you can buy, you know, fair food and popcorn and other things like that. The nice thing about Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania during this celebration is it's local. If you take a bus drive, or if you have to get to Gobbler's Knob, you need to take a bus. Take the school bus. I think the kids have a break on that day. I'm not sure, but you take the school bus. The service clubs are all involved, giving out food and having events. So it's kind of a fun thing going on. So we'd spend the evening doing that. On the far left, you see some people playing with fire and spinning fire. There'd be shows in the square, and it's just a fun evening. And then we'd eventually work our way back to the theater, and we watched the movie. And there's something nice, exciting about watching Groundhog's Day, which I've seen many times, in Groundhog in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And we would watch that, and it's much like the Rocky Picture Horror Show that everyone knows the lines. People are usually dressed up, many of them, and they're repeating the lines because, you know, the movie just keeps repeating itself. So that's fun.
Did they show the same movie again and again?
No, they just show up once, I think. You just show it once, but I've been there for many years in a row, so I was living the movie because there's small changes, but for the most part, it's been pretty nice. It's been pretty much the same.
And what's the pictures on the right there? I see fire and.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry to add to that. Yeah, you will see in the bottom right. This is the people walking to Gobbler's Knob. So we got to down roads, up through fields. It's a hill, so it's an uphill walk. And we all gather in Gobbler's Knob, and there's a stage, and they're trying to keep you entertained with all kinds of activities on the stage. And there's a huge bonfire to help stay warm. It's one of those things that it's hard to regulate. You get too close, and your parts of your clothing start to melt or burn. If you're too far, you're cold. They usually have some food. There's a lot of press around interviewing folks, and we just kind of stomp our feet and just wait for that morning to come to celebrate. And while you're up there, if you'll notice the left-hand corner, there's left side, there's someone dressed up as Punxsutawney, and there's a reporter interviewing that person. The picture in the middle does not take place up at Gobbler's Knob. I believe alcohol is not allowed. We did not bring alcohol. This was while in town, so we bought ourselves little hats, and this is a colleague of mine, and we had some fun while in town. In the morning, as you're up at Gobbler's Knob, there are fireworks. And that's the first time, you know, when I first did this, the first time I saw fireworks in the wee hours of the morning. So probably around 6:30, just before the sun rises, the fireworks are going off. So it's a big party, lots of people. We're having a great time.
What are you drinking there? What type of beer is that?
Well, it's a local brand. It's a Groundhog brand I have. So I have a bit of a collection.
Made from genuine groundhogs?
Yeah, hopefully not. But each year they have, well, at least when I was going, they would have a different label. So that starts you collecting your beer bottles, your Groundhog beer bottles.
I just wonder because there's a place in Pennsylvania they call the Panther Brewing Company. They brewed the Three Stooges beer. And they had like like the Three Stooges beer they brewed, they had Curly, Larry, and Moe on the cap. Was there a groundhog on this cap on this beer? Or
I don't remember one being on the cap. I've lost the caps, but I have a few in my office. But you know, if you're getting 20, 30,000 people and they're partying in town, you can sell a few cases of that beer.
Absolutely.
And this last shot is while in town. There's all kinds of statues and things that we looked at. Like I said, went to the Weather Museum and posed. The picture on the right is one example of the crowd. It's a lot of folks. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of people. I'm not sure what the record is, but it's up in the high 20s, maybe 30,000 people. It's a large number, that depending on when Groundhog's Day arrives. And it's just, they feed off each other, and it's a fun time. And then the picture on the left, we've got the inner circle, dragging out the groundhog from the stump and waiting for the prognostication. The groundhog speaks Hogganese, so not everyone can translate it. It's only the folks in the inner circle that can translate the language. And so the groundhog basically whispers or tells the inner circle gentleman there what the prognostication is, and then he tells the rest of the audience. And then once that's done, we get the word, there's a yay or there's a yah, whatever, then all these people head into town, and they usually have had breakfast. All the churches and stuff would have pancake breakfast and different things like that, and you would line up and have a good breakfast, and then we would be back in the vans and drive back to Buffalo 4 hours later. So it's a fun time. I've done it many years in a row, and it's something that should be on someone's bucket list.
Let's go to some typical Groundhog Day results. Let's get to the local one. Dunkirk Dave, our local groundhog in Chautauqua County of New York State, did not see his shadow and predicts an early spring.
Yay! Now Dunkirk Dave is the second oldest groundhog prognosticator, I understand.
Really?
So he's been doing, I don't know, but he's been doing it for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't mind a long winter. I like winter. I don't mind it.
Well, I know Punxsutawney's been doing it so long his social security number is 1. So maybe Dunkirk Dave's number is 2. I don't know. In Jackson, Georgia, General Beauregard Lee did not see his shadow and predicts an early spring in the Peach State.
We got a green dot. We got a green dot for that. Yep. Early spring.
Sir Walter Wally, Raleigh, North Carolina's groundhog, said, did not see my shadow and early spring will set in. Sir Walter Wally has proven a far better prognosticator than his cousin, Punxsutawney Phil. Since Wally began predicting, he has been right 58% of the time, while Phil has only been right 39% of the time.
Now there's a controversy here. Right now, Sir Walter Wally is living in Tennessee.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought he was living in North Carolina. That's the last.
The museum that he normally goes to is in North Carolina, but because of COVID, he stayed in the whatever park he is in Tennessee. So the question is it a forecast for Tennessee or North Carolina?
Well, these groundhogs are full of controversy.
Yeah.
That's
I
all.
would say they're full of a lot of other stuff, but hey.
That's all I could say. Now, here's another one. Jimmy the groundhog from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, did see a shadow predicting 6 more weeks of winter. Now,
But that's Wisconsin.
Right, but the thing is, isn't Jimmy the groundhog, he wasn't around this year either, was he?
No, Jimmy the groundhog was, I believe he might not, he's a stuffed one anyways.
But Jimmy the groundhog, he was the guy, the groundhog that in 2015 bit John, I'll spell his last name, Freund.
Freud.
Freud, John Freud.
Well, maybe
So
there's-
maybe he bit the mayor and got replaced.
you know, I might be wrong, but I seem to remember looking up Wisconsin and seeing it wasn't a real groundhog.
Oh,
So maybe Jimmy ran into more problems than we think.
Uh-oh.
okay. All right. Well, shortly after 8 a.m., Staten Island Chuck, aka Charles G. Hogg, the New York City groundhog. Chuck's prediction for 2021 was in early spring, made under a foot of snow without crowds. His prediction was not in agreement with the prediction made by Punxsutawney Phil. But there was some groundhog controversy here as well. The event, which billed itself as live on Facebook, appeared to be pre-recorded with Chuck leaving his burrow and finding not a snowflake in sight.
Boo. Must be Republican.
I don't know. They filmed this ahead of time and tried to pass it off, but then they had over that foot of snow in New York City. According to the Staten Island Zoo, in the 40 years of predictions, Chuck has an almost 80% accuracy rate with his predictions. He has made an incorrect prediction only once since 2010. I'm wondering if they're using that 40-degree Fahrenheit rule.
No, well, that's you got a question about how they're coming up with these percentages.
Yeah. Do
What
not.
I want to mention is it may have been recorded earlier, and I want to mention sometimes these groundhogs come out a little earlier than February 2nd, and you know Buffalo has its own groundhog now. It's Buffalo Bert. Lives at Hawks Creek, and he, I think it was on a Saturday or something, made a prognostication, and he called for 6 more weeks of winter.
Wow.
Yeah, they had him in the Buffalo News.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, the ceremony of back to Staten Island, the ceremony at the zoo is sometimes attended and officiated by the mayor of New York City. Now, a fun fact, Staten Island Chuck bit New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg in 2009. Because of the Bloomberg incident, Chuck was secretly replaced by his granddaughter, Charlotte, for the first Groundhog Day ceremony held during the mayoralty of Bill de Blasio. During that ceremony, held February 2nd, 2014, de Blasio dropped Charlotte onto the ground. Charlotte died February 9, 2014, a week later, although the Staten Island Zoo did not make this fact public until several months later. Reports conflicted about the cause of death. According to the New York Post, a necropsy attributed Charlotte's death to an acute internal injuries consistent with a fall. However, the zoo initially claimed that the animal died of natural causes, and that later took the position that it was unlikely that Charlotte's death was caused by the fall. Now, back in 2020, Mayor de Blasio confirmed that he has no plans to ever return to the Groundhog Day ceremony at the Staten Island Zoo. I tried it. It didn't end well. I won't be back, de Blasio said. Luckily for Mayor de Blasio, this year's pandemic and snowstorm gave him an out not to attend for the 6th year in a row. Well, at least the groundhog is safe for another year.
Good grief.
Yeah.
That's a lot of story there. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Groundhog Birmingham Bill, the Alabama groundhog, was absent for this year's Groundhog Day celebration at the Birmingham Zoo, as Birmingham Bill is still hibernating. Instead, the 2021 weather prediction came from the zoo's possum, Birmingham Jill. Jill saw her shadow just after 10 a.m., indicating we'll have 6 more weeks of winter. But of course, that wasn't a groundhog.
And that's also in Alabama. What do they know?
You're right. Stormy Marmot is a yellow-bellied marmot, a member of the squirrel family of the Rocky Mountain region, living in Aurora, Colorado. Stormy did see a shadow and predicts 6 more weeks of winter in Colorado. Now, Punxsutawney Phil loyalists have been known to disparage Stormy.
Now, one of the reasons they're probably disparaging Stormy is stuffed.
Yeah. Right.
And you know, I live stuff. That's a big debate. And there's Flatiron Phil in Colorado too. And Flatiron is also a stuffed critter. Not to say that they're not as accurate, but I can see where there's a controversy there.
A shadow is a shadow.
Yeah, maybe so. You're right.
Who knows what evil lurks in the mind of men and women?
Now,
The shadow knows.
now Potomac Phil, the Washington, D.C. stuffed groundhog, there's a good joke in there somewhere, folks,
Oh, yeah.
did not see a shadow and predicted an early spring and 6 more months of political gridlock.
Right.
However, after being accused of past collusion, Potomac Phil contradicted Punxsutawney Phil this year and further predicted 2 more years of political insanity. The Marion, Ohio groundhog, Buckeye Chuck, did not see a shadow and predicted an early spring. Pierre C. Chateau, the world-famous Cajun groundhog from Louisiana, did not make his prognostication about an early or late spring from the comforts of his home at Louisiana this year, stating, quote, "What the heck do people in Louisiana care about 6 more weeks of winter? I just thought, why are we paying attention to what some Yankee groundhog says," end quote. Town, New Jersey, Mel, the groundhog that lives in a funeral home, stayed socially distanced this year, but posted on Facebook, "As I lay here in bed and snore, I sneak a peek outside my door. If the lack of shadow is what I truly see, then in early spring there must be." And this Milltown Mel, I read, actually has they actually keep him inside the funeral home. He has a residence in there.
Different.
Different.
Nova
Now,
Scotia, they do this?
Now, I'm pointing
Some
out
good
to
people.
everybody that my picture is starting to wash out because the sun's coming through the window. And so I'm starting to see my shadow. I'm getting a little nervous. So we're probably going to end
6
pretty
more
soon.
weeks till spring, right?
or is it at Buff State there, 6 more weeks without, a dean or whatever,
Well, I'll just say 6 more weeks of roller coaster ride weather.
Okay.
Got to get you a shade on that window.
Well, let's get to the Canadian groundhogs.
You already are.
Well, we got to talk due to Nova Scotia's Atlantic time zone. I have no idea how to pronounce this.
Shubenacadie.
Shubenacadie. Yeah, Shubenacadie.
Shubenacadie.
The
Sam makes the first Groundhog Day prediction in North America in early spring because they are the earliest sunrise.
Yeah.
Now, in Ontario, Canada, Wyerton Willie, the Canadian groundhog, did not see a shadow predicting an early spring.
Now he's an interesting one too because he's been doing it for a long time as well, and he's an albino groundhog.
Really?
If that means anything, just a uniqueness.
Well, because they get no sunshine, so nothing up there has any color.
Up in the Bruce Peninsula, I got nothing. It's a little darker, less days, less hours of daylight in the winter. Yes.
Now, is that in cottage country?
Yeah, that's a little off to the north, but that'd be
Yeah, pretty close. Okay. In French Canada, where the day is known as Jour de la Marmotte, is that correct?
Yep.
Fred la Marmotte of Val d'Espoir. What? His French is terrible. Is it Val d'Espoir?
D'Espoir.
D'Espoir? Okay, has been the representative forecaster for the province of Quebec since 2009 and also predicted an early spring. So
it's a Canadian sweep. All the Canadian groundhogs that we know about that are real have said
now
early spring in Canada.
Yeah, that said, Balzac
early
Billy.
Spring in Canada is any time before July.
Are you suggesting that Canada has their 4 seasons, which is winter, June, July, and August?
Pretty much.
Okay.
I'm not going to comment.
Well, the
Oh,
comments,
go ahead. We will let you.
comments, I will send those comments, forward them to JJ. She can take those from
Oh,
our,
you can say whatever you want.
our Canadian, listeners in Newvid, or,
Well, you have a Canadian visitor right here.
Yeah, there you
true,
go.
There you go. I'm not
True.
prejudiced.
All right. Well, we
I can
have,
see Canada out my front door.
we have Balzac Billy is the prairie prognosticator, a man-sized groundhog mascot who prognosticates weather on Groundhog Day from Balzac, Alberta. Now, this fake saw his shadow and predicted 6 more weeks of winter.
So what gave it away? The fake.
Well, the man size,
That's right.
I would say that
Yeah,
that gave
yeah.
it away. For me.
Again, nothing to say. There's nothing wrong with stuffed groundhogs. I mean, that's a controversy.
He ate his Wheaties. That's why he's so man-sized. You live in Manitoba, there's a lot of wheat,
Well, in Manitoba, you got Manitoba Merv.
Yeah,
Did not see his shadow and predicted an early spring this year.
I think Manitoba Merv is man-sized too.
Oh, geez.
They get all
So-
that Canadian wheat.
But they're all, yeah. So with the ones that are real, we got an early spring, and even with the man-sized ones, the majority say an early spring for Canada. So
So,
At least-
We'll see.
prairies and
right.
eastern.
So the majority were early spring.
Yeah, if you remember that map I had up, we had up there, we looked at a number of groundhogs, and basically 3 to 1 are saying an early spring. So if we're going with crowdsourcing, I'm saying we're going to be having an early spring.
Okay.
Having said that, we're getting our polar vortex, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, look at some of those vortex things. I was looking at windy.com and I was looking at Earth Null School, and what a mess that is.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll be short-lived.
I remember a couple of years ago when that thing blew up, and I was saying, like, you hit your car on a pole. It takes all of a second and a half to wreck your car, and the rest of the next 8 weeks to fix it. Well, that thing wrecked itself over 5 months. How many years is it going to take for it to reassemble itself properly? Poor polar vortex.
So it's been a fun Groundhog's Day. I think it took its toll on some of the groundhogs, that some of them did not participate this year, and I guess we can understand why. But for the most part, we got a good crowd out there, groundhogs.
A
Yeah.
lot of groundhogs.
That did their due diligence, did their job, and made us feel comfortable as to what maybe the next 6 weeks will be like.
Well, I always thought about those groundhogs that they were, when they predicted the weather, underneath there where they pull them out, they actually have a big supercomputer underground that they're running around just trying to make their predictions.
We got little tunnels all over the place.
Yeah.
I think they're just sleeping and they're really ticked off because somebody's waking them up from their long nap, and they just say the first thing that comes out of their mouth so they can go back to bed.
So the comments and hoggies are edited, so we don't hear what they really are saying, like you said.
Right.
Groundhogs do swear. I
All
do it in the backyard all the time.
Okay. Well, on that
I don't know about the groundhogs, but the skunks are out. I saw that. I smelled a couple of them too.
Whole other story.
Yeah, not an official animal, but notice they the groundhog's not around. They have a replacement animal like an owl or
Yeah.
The
The snake is the one that defies reasoning, I think.
They never have a skunk as a fill-in.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
on
they
that
had-
note, I want to thank everyone for listening to the Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, the special Groundhog's Day edition of Weather Buff, the show on all things weather. Thank you, as always, to my co-host, JJ Ptak.
Sure.
All right. and
Having my
And
cup
they-
of tea.
yeah. Well, this, like all these shows, they go downhill at the very end.
It's real tea. I didn't put anything in it.
Okay. Also, thank you to my very special guest, Dr. Stephen Vermette from the Geography Planning Department at Buffalo State College in Buffalo, New York.
I guess at the bottom of the hill. There you go.
All right. And your emails are always welcome. If you have a weather question or question regarding the show, you can reach me by my email at wxmedic@gmail.com. That's the WX, the abbreviation for weather, and the word medic @gmail.com. If you're new to this channel and like the content, please subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you for making Weather Buff a part of your day. Good day, everyone.